Hi guys, welcome to the latest Smash the Math lesson. Today we're going to be looking at finding a percentage increase or decrease using a multiplier. So don't forget the usual tips for watching these videos. Watch the video first without pausing it. Watch it a second time and do the work with me, and then you can pause it if you need to if I'm going too quickly. Watch the video one more time all the way through and then attempt the questions at the end before you watch the answers. That's really important. Then watch the answers. I'll tell you when to pause it, remember. And check if you're right. If you've got most of them right, that's great. If you haven't, make sure you go back through the video and watch it. There's no point in watching these videos if you're not going to go and then redo some of the questions, and make sure you're happy before you leave the video. Okay, so there's three things we're going to learn today. First of all, we're going to look at what that word multiplier means, because that's really important. Then what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to work out a multiplier for any given percentage, because you need to be able to do that for the final thing that we're going to learn, which is to then take that multiplier and use it to increase or decrease an amount by a particular percentage. And don't forget the challenge at the end. Like I said, if you're not going to do the challenge, no point in watching the video. Okay, right, so let's very quickly then look at multiplier. So all it is really simple. A multiplier is a number we use to multiply, hence the word, another number. Okay, and you can write that down if you'd like to. So if we take an example, 2 times 8. So 2 is a multiplier of 8 because we're saying that we're multiplying 8 by 2. Okay, and likewise 8 is a multiplier of 2 because we're multiplying 2 by 8. So it's any number. A multiplier is any number we use to multiply another number. That's all it is. But it's really important when we're looking at doing percentage increases and decreases. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at multipliers then. So let's take an example. Let's say we've got 20%. Okay, and we've got to turn that into a multiplier before we can do anything with it in regards to percentage increase and decreases. Okay, now if we imagine we have got to turn that percentage into a number between 0 and 1, a decimal between 0 and 1. Okay, 1 being the whole thing, which is the equivalent to 100%. 100% is the whole thing, and 0 being 0%. Okay. Now, if you think about it, if I want to turn this 100% into a number between 0 and 1, I can divide it by 100, because anything divided by itself is always equal to 1. Okay, and likewise, if I want to work out what 0% is, I'll divide that by 100, because anything 0 divided by anything is 0. In this case, divide that by 100, we get 0. Okay, so the key here is that we divide our percentage by 100 to get to that decimal between 0 and 1. So if we take our 20%, okay, and I want to turn that into a multiplier, a number between 0 and 1, all I need to do is to divide it by 100. Okay, now because we're dividing it by multiples of 10, we don't need to do bus stop. If you're interested in learning more about bus stop, you can check out the dividing video on the channel. All we need to do is just do a little bit of moving or shifting it a few places. So if I take my 20% and I've got my decimal here, imagine I'm shifting the 20. So if I shift it one place to the right, I get 2. Okay, because I'm divided by shifting it one place to the right. I've divided it by 10. Okay, 20 divided by 10 is 2. I want to divide it by 100, so I'm going to then move it again by another multiple of 10, which makes it 100. 10 times 10 is 100, and I get 0.2. Okay, so 20% as a multiplier, a number between 0 and 1 is 0.2. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to do some examples that you can do with me, and then we'll have a bit of a practice later. So here's some examples on the left. So we're going to have a go at those. So if I've got 25% and I want to turn that into a multiplier, number between 0 and 1, remember all I need to do is divide it by 100. Okay, and if I want to divide it by 100, I can shift it 2 places. 1, 2. So that becomes 0.25. Nice and simple. And the more you practice these, the easier it is. You can do them in your head a lot of them, until you get to the really small percentages. Sometimes that can be more tricky. Let's do 34. So 34%, get that as a multiplier. Divide it by 100. Again, move it 2 places. I end up with 0.34. Okay, simple as that. Let's do one that's a bit more trickier. So 123%. Again, if I want to turn that into a multiplier, now this is more than 100%. So if it's more than 100%, I know that actually my multiplier is going to be more than 1. Okay, because if you go back to what we were talking about before, it's between 0 and 1, 1 being 100%. Okay, so we know this is 123%, it's going to be this way, so it's going to be bigger than 1, okay, which is fine. Same principle applies, so let's just get rid of that. So 123 divided by 100. And again, I'm shifting it 2 places, so it becomes 1.23. Okay? Right, let's just get myself some room and then we can try a couple more. Let's just get rid of this. Get rid of this. So like anything with maths, it's just practice, 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 practice. Okay, so let's take a look at 1.6%. Okay, same principle applies. I need to divide that by 100. Okay, now I've got to move my decimal, or shift it 2 places. So I'm going to go 1 to here and 2 to here, and I need to fill the gap in. Okay, so if you imagine now what I've got, if I was to remove that, sorry, I've got 0.16. Oh no, silly me, that's not right. Let's take rid of that. Let's do that again, sorry. So 1.6, okay, I'm going to move this 2 decimal places, so I'm going to go 1, 2, put my 0 in here. So now I've got 0.016, okay, that's 1.6 divided by 100, okay. And let's do one more. I'll do another one like that. Let's do 2.3%. So turn it into a multiplier, divide it by 100. So we're going to go 1, 2, fill the gap. So we've got 0.023. Okay, and that's 2.3%. So it's just a matter of dividing it by 100, shifting it 2 places each time. With a bit of practice, you'll be able to do that without any problem. Okay? Right, so that's finding a multiplier. Now what we're going to have a look at is we're going to have a look at using them to increase and decrease an amount. So here's an example. So if we said we had £50 and we wanted to increase that by, I don't know, 20%. Okay, now this is a calculator lesson doing here. There is another lesson on my channel which shows you how to increase and decrease an amount without a calculator, but this is with a calculator because we're using multipliers. So let me show you. So first thing we're going to do is turn our percentage into a multiplier. So I know I can divide that by 100, okay, or move the decimal 2 places. 1, 2, so it becomes 0.2. Okay, so that's my multiplier. All right. Now we want to increase £50 by 20%. Okay, so if I've got my 50 quid here, okay, this is 100%. It's the whole thing, right? Okay, and we know a multiplier. The multiplier 100% is a multiplier. Divide that by 100 is 1. Okay, I want to increase this by 20%. So what I actually want is 120%. I start with my 100%, my £50, and I'm increasing by 20%. And I've already worked out my multiplier, so it becomes 1 plus 0.2. Okay, so 1 plus 0.2 is 1.2. That's my multiplier. Okay, so let me go through that again. £50 is 100%, it's the whole thing. And we want to add, increase, meaning add, another 20%. So my multipliers, 100% as a multiplier is 1, and 20% as a multiplier is 0.2, and I'm adding that onto that. So it becomes 1.2. So to work out an increase, I'm going to do £50 or 50 in a calculator times 1.2. Okay, and if you put that in your calculator, you're going to put times. So I'll grab my calculator here, and I'm going to put 50 times 1.2. The answer I get is 60 or £60. Oops. Okay. All right, so that's an example there. I'm going to do some more examples on the next screen. Okay, so that's how we do it. So let me show you some examples, and you can have a go at them with me. Right, okay. So we've got some increases here, and what we're going to do is I'm going to change it up. So I'm going to go increase 45 by 45%. So I'm going to take 30, and I'm going to increase this by 45%. Okay, so the first thing I do, right, is I work out what my multiplier for 45% is. So remember, I divide that by 100. Okay, or I shift it 2 places. 1, 2. So my multiplier for 45% is 0.45. Brilliant. Now, just to show you, remember, 30 is 100%. It's the whole thing. I've started with 30. 100% as a multiplier is 1. I'm adding on, because I'm increasing, by 45%. So I'm adding the multiplier, I've already worked that, as 0.45. Okay, so I'm doing 100% of 30, adding another 45. My multiplier for 100%, the whole thing, is 1, plus 45% is 0.45. So my multiplier for this one is 1.45. So I'm going to do 30 times 1.45 in my calculator. So if I grab that and I do 30 times 1.45, I get 43.5. Okay, so that's one example. So let's just get rid of that, and I'll show you a couple more, and you can do them with me. Okay, so let's take now, I don't know, 60, and we're going to increase that by 32%. Okay, now first thing I do, work out my multiplier for the percentage. So remember, that's 32. I'm going to divide it by 100 to get it as a decimal between 1 and 0. So I can shift this 2 places. So there is my multiplier for 32%. So remember, I'm starting with 60. That's 100%. That's the whole thing. I'm starting with the whole thing. I'm adding on, because I'm increasing, 32%. Okay, so 100% as a multiplier is 1, plus 32% as my multiplier. Okay, so that is 1.32. So that's my multiplier to increase that amount by 32%. So I'm going to take 60 times by 1.32, and I get 79.2. Okay, that's another example for you. Okay, right, let's do a couple more examples. So I'm going to show you decrease. Okay, very similar way. So let's take, I don't know, 120. Okay, and we're going to decrease this now by 23%. So it's a little bit more trickier, but not much if you follow this method. So we're going to do 120, and we're going to decrease by 23%. So same thing. First thing I'm going to do is work out what this is as a multiplier. So 23 divided by 100. I'll shift it 2 places. So there you go. That's my multiply for 23%. Now the difference here now is because we're decreasing. If you think about it, I've got 120, which is the whole thing. And I'm taking away, because I'm decreasing, by 23%. Okay? So 100% is 1 as a multiplier. Take away 23% as a multiplier. Okay, so that's 1, take away 0.23. You can do that in your calculator, but that is 0.77. Okay, so now I take my 120 times 0.77. Okay, I started with 120, which was 100%. I'm taking away or subtracting 23%, so I'm decreasing. So I take my multiplier for 100%, which is 1, and take away 23%. So my multiplier becomes 0.77. Stick that in my calculator. So 120 times becomes 92.4. Okay? Right, let's do one more decrease, and then you've got some questions you can have a go at, and you can always come back and have a look at these examples. So let's now take 150, and we're going to decrease that by, let's do 65%, which we've got on the screen there. Okay, right, so first things first, turn that into my multiplier. So 65 divided by 100. Shift it 2 places to divide it by 100. So that's my multiplier for 65%. I'm decreasing, so 150 is 100%. And I'm taking away, I'm decreasing it by 65%. Okay, so remember that 100% is 1 as a multiplier. 65 already worked out is 0.65, and I'm taking that away. So 1 take away 0.65 is 0.35. Okay, so to work out 150 and a decrease of 65%, I'm going to times it by my multiplier of 0.34. So 150 times 0.35, sorry, did I say 0.34? Is 52.5. Okay, so that's increase and decrease. All right, okay. The only difference is if we're increasing, we add on our multiplier. If we're decreasing, we take off our multiplier. Okay, from 1. All right. Okay, so it's time to pause the video in a minute. Now let me explain this in this lesson. There are 2 sets of questions. There's one set of questions for you to practice working out your multipliers. Okay, dividing by 100, and then there's another set of questions which is then be able to practice using those to increase and decrease. Okay, so I'm going to show you the multiplier questions, then I would pause it, have a go at those. Then if you play the video, you'll see the questions for the increasing and decreasing, and then all the answers come afterwards. Okay, here we go. So here are your questions for your multipliers. Okay, so pause the video now, have a go at as many as you can. Good luck. Okay, right, now come your questions for the increase and decrease. So you've had a bit of a practice doing the multipliers. See if you can now put that into practice by increasing and decreasing. Here come the questions. Okay, hopefully you've had a great go at all of those questions. I know there was quite a lot, but it's good bit of practice. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the answers up for you. So don't look at these answers unless you've done most of the questions. All right, and then check your answers. Remember, if you haven't done so well, that's fine. Go back and have a look at my examples over and over again until you understand. Okay, so here come the questions for the the answers for the multipliers. So there you go, there are your answers. So you can pause it and mark your work. And here are the answers for the increases and decreases. Again, pause it, check your answers. Okay, right, that's the end of the lesson for today. Hope you learnt something new. Remember, there's loads of videos to watch on the channel. Remember to subscribe. Remember, maths is all about practice. So the three things that we looked at today is what the word multiplier means. It's just a number we use to multiply another number by. How to work out a multiplier for any given percentage. Remember, all you do is you divide that number by 100, or that percentage by 100, so you get a decimal answer between 0 and 1. And then we've looked at how to use that multiplier to increase or decrease. So remember, we're increasing it, we add our multiplier to 1. And if we're decreasing it, we take it away from 1. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Check out some more of the videos. Hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Bye.